Welcome back to Believe in Celtics. We are so back, and today we're doing things a little differently because we have a special guest joining us. He's a 36-year coordinating producer at none other than ESPN and currently a co-host for 48 Hours. And today he's pulling up to help us break down all things Celtics and preview what's ahead for the upcoming season. Please welcome in Bruce Bernstein. All right, so we have Bruce Bernstein joining us now to Believe in Celtics. Bruce, thank you so much for coming on the show today. First off, just how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to join you today, Courtney, and talk about one of my absolute favorite subjects, which is the Boston Celtics.
Absolutely. Now, when you say your absolute favorite subjects, just give us a little background. Like, tell us a little bit about who you are. I know you have a lot of experience around the NBA, a lot of experience in sports media. So just kick us off. Just give us a little background about who you are.
Well, thank you for that. I grew up in the Boston area, actually in the city of Brockton, which is about a half hour south of Boston. I worked at ESPN for about 32 years altogether. I was in charge of NBA studio shows from 2002 to 2017. When we had the contract, I oversaw SportsCenter's coverage of the NBA Finals for like 21 years. I retired from ESPN at the end of 2018 and started a company called Pure Hoops Media, no longer in business, but I've been working with our partners at the BLEAV network on a show called 48 Minutes, which we've been doing since December of 2022. So I'm like, got NBA running through my bloodstream.
And when you say I've been a Celtics fan since the Bill Russell era, so talk about why the Celtics. Are you from the area? Do you just like the C's? What's going on there?
Well, I mean, growing up, everybody in my circle of friends was, mostly a Red Sox fan, and I like the Red Sox too. But basketball was always my favorite sport. I played it on the playground, a little bit, organized. And just like the game is just so exciting to me. It's so much fun. And it's also so easy. I mean, so many sports, a lot of kids grew up like in hockey, whatever, but that's a major commitment. You got to buy a ton of equipment. It's expensive. With basketball, you need a ball and a hoop and somewhere to shoot it. And that means that it's like the most accessible sport to everybody. So to me, it's just like, it's just, and the athletes that play it. And the people, I mean, I've had such great experiences covering the sport, meeting everybody you can imagine in the NBA, working on great events. And it's just, even though I'm, retired from my main career at ESPN, I will never retire from loving or trying to cover the NBA. And, being here today feeds right into that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, with that said, let's just get right into it with our first segment. Is there hope in Boston this year? So after a dominant 64-18 regular season in the 2023-2024 season and an impressive 16-3 playoff run that ended in a title, the Celtics followed up with a 61-win regular season this past year, but their repeat hopes collapsed in the second round of the playoffs. Boston blew those two massive leads. We know about that to the Knicks, and then lost Tatum to a torn Achilles in Game 4, ultimately falling short of the conference finals. Now, even before that injury, we knew the roster changes were coming, especially with second apron penalties looming and a new ownership group taking over. So this offseason, Boston retooled big time, letting go of Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, adding new names like Anthony Simons, 3 draft picks, including Amari Williams and Hugo Gonzalez. So, Bruce, with all that said, and even before that Tatum injury, everyone knew the Celtics needed to make some changes. And now, as an NBA insider, what moves were you expecting them to make? And are you happy with the choices that they did make this offseason?
Well, once they lost Tatum, and it was pretty clear that he was going to miss most, if not all, of this season, they kind of no longer considered themselves a legitimate championship contender. And as you mentioned, they had, salary cap issues. So they really had to start moving some salary off the book. So that's why they had to clear, Porzingis and Jrue Holiday, which took a total of like $63 million off of their books. And they made some other moves. They didn't, try to re-sign Luke Cornett. He got a nice deal from San Antonio. Horford, a free agent, they had to let him go. So they really needed to, move on and sort of get themselves positioned to move forward once Tatum came back. And some of the guys that they brought in, I think, have some real potential there. But the moves that they made were mostly based on the need to shed in payroll or whatever. And I think, I have a lot of faith in Brad Stevens. I think he generally makes good moves. So, and I really like Joe Mazzulla as the coach. So for me, is there hope in Boston this year? yeah, there's hope, but the hope isn't necessarily to win the championship. The hope is to maybe finish, in the top 6 so they don't have to be in the play-in. I think, if they can do that, I would call the season successful. And then, next year when JT comes back, or who knows, he's talking about maybe coming back even late in the season. If they're in the top 6 and they add JT and he's ready to go, he should not rush back. I don't want him to rush back. If he's not ready, sit it out. But if they show potential as a team and he says, I'm ready, let's go, that's a pretty big X factor for the postseason.
Absolutely. Okay. Now let's talk about a little bit more into depth into getting rid of who we got rid of this offseason. So Celtics fans, they accepted that Drew Holiday trade. That was fine. He has injury prone. He's a little bit aged now. He produces good numbers, but I could see why Celtics fans are okay with that. That Porzingis deal, though, the fans were hurt. How do you feel? Do you feel like that's a big loss for Boston, or was maybe he just too expensive and too risky?
Well, as good as he was when he was healthy, his health has always been a question mark. I mean, his salary of nearly $31 million was a luxury they probably could afford when they looked like a title contender. But again, because of the Tatum injury, they don't look like one. So they really kind of had to move on from him. But they're definitely going to miss his rim protection because, Courtney, you can't teach 7'3" with your arms up.
Oh, my God.
You can't teach that.
I like Porzingis a lot. When he's in the game, he's effective, but you miss nearly half the season. That's not effective. You're just down a big man. So I can understand that as well. I understand why the fans are hurt, but I definitely understand that was a move that was probably necessary. I mean, $30 million is a lot of money to pay somebody, especially when you're so far into that tax. All right, so let's keep pushing along. Let's go into the second. We talked a little bit about it, but now we're in the post-Tatum era right now. So obviously fans expected a few trades this summer. Nobody expected that Tatum injury. He's expected to miss the entire upcoming season. That's obviously devastating to this franchise. Add in Al Horford, maybe not even retiring at this point. This team obviously looks pretty different. So Bruce, with that brand new roster, with Jaylen Brown now obviously having to take a much larger role, can he lead the Celtics to a successful season on just his back?
I think he can, but success is going to be a relative term for this team. I don't see a 50-win team here, even if Jaylen Brown is first team All-NBA or second team All-NBA. But if they can get somewhere between 42 to 45 wins and they end up, with a shot at the postseason, that'll be successful. But yes, I think Jaylen Brown is capable of that. I really believe that JB is on a mission this year to show that he is more than just Robin to Jayson Tatum's Batman. Now, and I feel bad for JB in a lot of ways because a lot of Celtics fans bash him unfairly. They focus on his shortcomings. Look, he does have a tendency to turn the ball over. He sometimes dribbles into trouble. His shot selection is good. I don't think there's any issues there. I think it's more like, are his handles good enough? Is his decision-making when he drives into traffic? But I really believe, Courtney, he has a chance to quiet some of his critics this season if he can lead them into the postseason. Because he's going to get most of the blame if they don't, even if he does put up numbers. But I really do hope the fan base judges him fairly and gives him his flowers if the team does well and he does well. So, yes, I am a big Jaylen Brown guy. I have a lot of faith in him. I think he's a leader. I think he's a great two-way player. And I think he's ready to step up a little bit. And if that happens, then I think, there is some upside for this team.
Absolutely. Now, you talked a little bit about why some fans would have him labeled as maybe overrated and maybe he feels a lot underrated. Do you think that this noise that he made this summer, do you think that he is feeling a little bit emotional because of all of the backlash from Jayson Tatum going down, the teams, not being expected to do well this season? Do you think that he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder coming in to this season this year?
I think absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, he plays in the shadow of Tatum, which makes it tougher for him to get the love he deserves because he's not seen like around the NBA as the number one star of the team. Okay. This year he is. I mean, I don't think there's any question. He's the number one star of the team. So if he makes the all-star team and they exceed expectations, I think he's going to, he is the alpha dog right now. There's just, Derek White's a great player, but he's not Jaylen Brown level. He's, just a little bit below it and a fantastic player. I love him. I hope he finishes his career in Boston. But yeah, I think because of Tatum's presence. I mean, look, Tatum is a first-team All-NBA player now pretty much every year. JB has not been able to do that. But I think the chip on his shoulder is a real thing. And I don't think he plays angry. But he he has that fire in his belly that you need. And I have no doubt about that.
Now, we know Jaylen Brown loves Boston to his core. I mean, he has made Boston his home. He has started his businesses there. He started his nonprofits there. He has really taken heart to this community. However, should there be some mishaps in this season, do you think that Jaylen Brown would ever consider wanting to make a move away from Boston?
I hope he never leaves Boston. His career is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. That's no lie. He's been an all-star in 4 of the last 5 seasons. Okay. He plays both ends of the court. As you mentioned, he's very active in the community. He's all about, doing good for a lot of people that needs a champion like him to be on their side. As I said, I love his leadership skills. I want to see number 7 raised to the rafters at TD Garden someday after he retires as a Celtic.
Absolutely. Now, that's obviously definitely in his trajectory. Should he stay in Boston? For sure, 1,000%. I don't disagree with that. I am a little bit concerned, though, Bruce. I can't lie to you. So you give 2 star athletes, they're usually a dynamic duo. One goes down for an entire season. One steps up and has to play the leader role. JT comes back next season. How do those 2 work together at that point after Jaylen Brown having been the number 1 guy on the roster? How do you get those back to get into working together?
I think a lot of that is going to depend on who else is out on the floor with those guys. I mean, JT and JB, I think, look, they won a championship together. They've made the playoffs every season they played together. They were in the finals a couple of other times playing together. I mean, they are both, I think they certainly come to terms with how to complement one another. But, 2 against 5, is never going to win anything, no matter how good your 2 are. You need the other guys. You need the Derek Whites of the world. I mean, look, they needed Porzingis to come in there and kind of be kind of a cheat code for Joe Mazzulla in that he could give him the ball in the post. He could score over almost anyone. He could be a presence on defense in the middle. So as good as JB and JT are, you can never be a championship team unless you're a great defensive team. Now, those 2 guys play both ends. I'm not worried about either of them, but there are other guys, and Derek White as well, but they've got to be able to rebound, and they've got to be able to, be strong defensively and have rim protection. And if those 2 guys both average 29 points a game and they don't have those other things, they're not going to win.
1,000%. 1,000%. All right. Well, let's push right into our next topic here. Let's fast forward into opening night. Okay. So let's push right into our next topic here. Let's fast forward into opening night. Okay. So again, we talked about just how many pieces you are going to need to be a successful team. It doesn't just rely on 1 star. We've seen that many a times. LeBron needed a team around him. Kobe, everybody needed a team around them, So obviously we know that this championship roster is not probably going to be that right now. So let's look at the roster then. So outside of Jaylen Brown, the only remaining starter from the 2024 championship, we mentioned him, Derek White. Payton Pritchard has some starting spots there under his belt, but beyond that, this is a whole new crew. So looking at the current roster now, including rookies, including signed people from offseason, who is your starting 5? And let's explain and talk about why that would be.
Well, I would say, obviously Derek White, who's when he and Holiday were together, I used to call those guys the wardens because they used to lock people up. Okay. So now it's just D White, but he'll be a starter. Payton Pritchard, it looks like, is going to start. I love Payton Pritchard. I have my doubts about whether he's going to be the same guy as a starter than he was coming off the bench. The reason being, when you're the 6th man, you're coming into the game with fresh legs. A lot of times you're going against guys who've played 6-7 minutes already. They might be a little bit slower than you. So you can come in there and with your energy, you can do well. But when he has to go up against starting level guards from the opening tip, we'll see. Maybe he can do it. He is a tough-minded little guy and skilled in many ways.
Sure.
But to me, that's a question mark. Neemias Queta, I have high hopes for him this season. I thought he did really well in the Eurobasket tournament for Portugal. In our bold predictions show a few weeks ago on 48 Minutes, I said that I believe he'll be a double-double guy this year and in the top 10 of most improved players in the league. He's not going to be the most improved player in the league. I don't see that happening. But when you go down the list of guys who were under the radar and all of a sudden have become guys that are legitimate, starting guys in the NBA, I see Queta as that guy. As far as the forwards, Jaylen, of course, and I think probably Chris Boucher, who came over from Toronto after being there like 7-8 years. Chris Boucher won a championship with those guys in 2019. So he's used to being on teams and he's used to playing some games that matter. After that, I think Simons is probably going to start out as the sixth man. But that's a good sixth man. I mean, he averaged 19 a year. He loves to shoot threes.
He played phenomenally in Portland, mind you. They're talking about giving him up still, but I hope that Anthony stays on the roster. I think that's a great backup.
He needs to improve his defense, though, because his rep has always been he's a bucket, but he gives up a lot of buckets, too.
Yeah, he does.
But you know what? On a team with a good defensive scheme, he all he has to do is work at it a little bit. I think, he's got potential. And then after Simons as a sixth man, I think then you got, Sam Hauser, Luka Garza, who comes over, who's a banger, and he's going to hopefully help them on the in the rebounding area. And another name that nobody really talks about a whole lot is Josh Minott. Minott was in Minnesota, never really got a chance to play there. He's a pretty young guy, 6'8" guy, a lot of bounce in his game. I think, he's a guy that, has a chance. He's going to get a real chance this year to play minutes that he never really got the chance to play in Minnesota. So that's what I see in the rotation. If those are the top four and then there's four coming off the top five and then there's four coming off the bench, we'll see. But Pritchard's going to have to prove to me that he's a starting guard.
He started quite a few games, though, last season. He didn't underperform in those games.
No, he was awesome. And again, believe me, I think he's capable of it. But again, he's really scrappy on defense. He's not a lockdown defender, but he's good in a team defensive scheme. But again, when you had, bigs like Tatum and Porzingis playing behind you,
correct.
Sometimes you could, if your guy beats you on occasion, somebody was there to kind of cover you. This year, maybe that's not going to be as effective for him.
You make a great point there. You make definitely a great point there because sometimes people shine in roles when they have the right supporting cast. And he had a system that was just complete designated for success. So, yes, you're absolutely right. That is something to think about whenever you're looking into whether or not Payton Pritchard will be the same Payton Pritchard that we saw last couple of seasons. He doesn't have the same system there. So this system, you have to create shots on your own. You have to be able to create spacing and make decisions on your own without having the leadership behind three mega superstars. So, yes, that is something that we will have to consider. And I really hope that he does do well because we don't really have that many options outside of that for a starter. I definitely think Payton Pritchard will be in that. And I really am a huge fan of his. I mean, I just like what he stands for. I love the heart that he carries into, basketball, just the sport alone. He's one of the guys that you'll see just in the cold outside, just putting up baskets, So that's something that's really, remarkable. And I just genuinely, I do hope that he does prove a lot of, not even prove you wrong. I just hope that, he definitely shocks a lot of people because that's a great point. That definitely could be something that plays into that being a different player.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you had Al Horford back there and you had, Porzingis and even Luke Cornett, who was really a backup, those were like three guys with significant defensive skills. And now it's like, Luka Garza's not that guy. Okay. And if Chris Boucher starts at center, that's really going to be kind of a small ball thing. Queta, I think, or if Boucher gets some minutes at small ball center, I see him more as a forward. Queta could be that guy. I mean, I really, it's funny. During the Eurobasket tournament, somebody was talking to Porzingis about Queta, and he said, Joe Mazzulla was really, really tough on Queta last year, and he said, but a coach is really only tough on a guy when he thinks that he can get more out of them. So maybe Joe Mazzulla knows the code, has the code to unlock, Neemias Queta.
Yeah.
I have real optimism about this guy. I really do.
Okay, question for you. What are your thoughts about who the Celtics drafted in the 2025 draft this year? Do you think that they're going to get some minutes? Do you think they're going to shine? Do you think they're going to be added to the system, or is it just some growth areas in the draft this year?
It's going to be tough. I mean, because one guy I didn't even mention when I was talking about their top nine was Baylor Shireman, who was their draft pick in 2024, who actually showed some signs at the end of the year. I'm not sure how much of a factor he's going to be, but as far as the rookies goes, I mean, Courtney, look, if the team is doing well, they're less likely to get a chance. If the team kind of stumbles out of the gate and they say, listen, if they find out after 20 games that they're like 6-14 or something like that, those guys are going to get more of a chance to show what they have, because at that point you're going to kind of know this thing is not, this thing's going sideways, right? So I think it really is going to depend. I mean, Hugo Gonzalez, they say, he's a good player. He was their number one guy. So let's see what happens. But again, I think that's going to be dictated by their record more than anything.
Absolutely. When we talk about record, I mean, John Hollinger predicted 42.5 win season. You were right on track for that with how many wins you thought this team was going to win. Is there any hope that they supersede that they go above and beyond those expectations this season?
There's always hope. I mean, look, their offensive style is such that they're going to get a lot of buckets. But like I said, I'm concerned about their interior defense. And to me, if you don't have good defense, you're not a great team. If everything goes their way, yeah, they could get 45 or more wins, but they need everything to go right, I think, and they need to be injury free, and they maybe need to make a trade along the way. But again, I'm not so sure they're going to really go pedal to the metal to try and win 47 games. Knowing that Tatum returns next year. I'm sorry?
This is the Eastern Conference, though. I mean, it's not the most competitive in the NBA.
You're right. I mean, look, Cleveland's really good. The Knicks are really good. Orlando's really good. But then after that, it's like, well, okay, Detroit's a good team. They should be better than Boston this year. Milwaukee, a lot of people think they're going to be pretty good. I'm not one of them. I think Milwaukee's kind of right there with Boston, in the lower echelon. Same with Indiana because of Tyrese Halliburton injury and also losing Miles Turner to Milwaukee as a free agent. So but again, I see the top three in the East clearly as Cleveland, the Knicks, and Orlando. So after that, it's like everybody else. So
Yep. Awesome. Okay, well, let's move into one of my favorite segments of this show. It is our rapid fire. I get to ask you all kinds of fun things, Bruce. So let's get right into it. All right, so you can answer this one word, you can explain it, you can go into detail. We're just here to listen to what you have to say. So first question, best player to ever wear a Celtics jersey?
Until Tatum retires and Jaylen Brown retires, I have to only base it on retired players, okay? Guys that have been there. So Bill Russell, without a doubt. I mean, there's no question about that. But if you want to know my Mount Rushmore of Celtics players, my top four.
For sure.
Bill Russell, John Havlicek, Larry Bird, Paul Pierce.
Oh my goodness. So JT can't get in there literally until retirement.
Well, I want to see his full body of work. I mean, those guys all played like, 12, 13, 14 years. JT's only about halfway there. He very well could be. And if he does, he might, jump ahead of Paul Pierce. I don't think he's going to jump ahead of Larry Bird or Bill Russell.
Yeah,
John Havlicek, maybe, So he could end up number 3 all time. But again, you know how it is in Boston. A lot of the ways you're judged is how many championships you win.
Exactly.
So if Paul Pierce, Paul Pierce made it with 1. There are other guys like Kevin McHale who had more than 1, and certainly a lot of guys who played with Bill Russell, had multiples. But right now that's to me it's Bill Russell far and away.
Perfect. Most dominant Celtics team. I think I know where you're going with this too in Celtics history.
Well, aside from Bill Russell's 11 championships in 13 years, we have to kind of put that one to the side because that is like way up there. I would say the 1985-86 Celtics. They won 67 games. They won a championship. Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale, and Bill Walton were all Hall of Famers. So after the Bill Russell teams, that's to me the greatest Celtics team.
Perfect. I'll have to go back and watch some highlights from, because I obviously was not born around that time.
There are clips available, Courtney.
Yes, YouTube is alive. I will go and I will watch that team. All right, I know this one already. You shared this with me, so let's go talk about it. Your favorite Celtics memory.
Oh my God! You saw the picture I sent you, right?
I'm gonna upload this on to the video. They are going to see your favorite Celtics memory. So let's talk about it.
Game 6 of the 2008 NBA Finals. The Celtics destroyed the Lakers for banner number 17. Game 6. The game was over at halftime. The entire second half of that game was just the TD Garden just celebrating. I mean, I was sitting up, with the ABC and the ESPN people hanging out with Magic Johnson, among other people, because he was working with us back then. And the crowd, and Magic was such a gracious guy. A lot of fans, because he didn't try and hide. He was out there where people could see him. And he was so gracious. But I was standing a few feet away from the Celtics bench when Paul Pierce gave the first ever indoor Gatorade shower to Doc Rivers. Now, I was clearly visible in that photo at the moment. Why was I standing next to the Celtics bench at that point in time? Well, I was with ESPN at the time, and I was waiting for Mike Tirico, the great Mike Tirico, to finish up. He was broadcasting the game live on ESPN radio, okay? And they were down courtside. So I was waiting for him to finish up, and as soon as he finished up, we were meeting a camera person on the court, and we were going to interview not the big three, but the other two, Rajon Rondo and Kendrick Perkins, because we were going to do what, like, you know what a live to tape interview is. We were going to put it on tape and, send it, to the truck to roll in at some point. So I was standing there waiting. And, if you look at the picture, Doc Rivers is looking away from Pierce. I'm looking in the same direction as Doc, because the Lakers were bringing the ball up from the other end of the court. So we're just watching the ball. And then all of a sudden, here comes Pierce. And when I got a chance to work with Paul, in 2017, when we worked on the jump together, I said, Paul, and actually I had met him at the All-Star game in New Orleans earlier. I said, Paul, I'm in that picture of you with Doc in the Gatorade. He said, really? He said, I got that picture hanging in my house. I said, well, thanks for having a picture of me in your house. I appreciate it. But that is by far and away my all-time favorite moment, not only as a Celtics fan, but in my entire broadcasting career, which kind of started in the 1970s.
What a moment. That's such a huge moment. I mean, first of all, the fact that you are in that space alone at that kind of a magnitude of an NBA game and playoff game, that is something that is incredible, for one. So that's hats off to just the extensive, wonderful career you've had in this media. And it's just given you such amazing opportunities like that. So I can't wait to share everybody that picture. It had me literally tickled last night. That was hilarious. All right, so this is a good question. Biggest Celtics rival, Lakers or the Sixers? Because a lot of fans are debating that right now.
Last summer, I did an event at the Basketball Hall of Fame where I was hosting this thing called Hoop Hall Hangout, which is like a kids event where they bring in like famous people to, talk. I did some of them this year. Michael Cooper was one of my guys. But last year, I did one with Cedric Maxwell, Celtics, color analyst. So I asked Max, I said, bigger rival of the Celtics, the Lakers or the Sixers? He's here. The Lakers, he said, but he called them the Fakers. Okay. The Lakers, they have to be. The Sixers, though, are a very close second. They really are.
It's we don't see in the late 2000s where we are now in the NBA, you don't see the Lakers Celtics being as prevalent in terms of the atmosphere, but everybody knows. We all know the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird clash, like, of the Titans. We've seen so many documentaries. We will just relived it over and over again. I don't think that rivalry is going to die. But I will say, those crowds, when you go to Boston versus the Sixers and Sixers versus Boston, it's almost intimidating how loud and mean those fans get in both arenas during those games. So I can understand. Close second for sure. It's a fun time right now.
Courtney, Boston fans and New York fans agree on very, very few things. But the one thing that Boston fans and New York fans all agree on, We can't
We
stand
hate Philly.
Philadelphia teams. And you ask, who's the Boston's biggest rival? If you ask the Lakers, they will definitely say Boston's their biggest rival, because it's funny. They're going to be unveiling a statue of Pat Riley this February outside the crypto.com arena. And the team that's in town when they unveil that statue is the Boston Celtics. And that's no accident, because Pat Riley hates the Celtics. Has hated them for years. He hated them in LA. He hates them in Miami.
No.
And I think that's a real nice troll job by the Lakers to have the Celtics in town when they unveil Riles' statue.
Exactly. All right. Last rapid one. Favorite NBA or best NBA era? 70s, 80s, 90s, or 2000s? Don't be biased.
Tough to top the 80s. 3 Celtics championships, the intense rivalry with those Showtime Lakers, watching stars like Magic, Bird, Julius Erving, and the arrival of Michael Jordan and other incredible stars like Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Patrick Ewing. So I love every era of the NBA, but it's when you win 3 championships in one 10-year span, and you were in the finals against the Lakers other times, that was really kind of. A lot of people would say that was the golden age of the NBA.
Okay, question for you then to follow up. Do you think the 80s NBA is tougher than the current NBA?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, every era is tough. Those guys were unbelievable. The guys that I mentioned, they could play in any era. But, back then the three-point shooting was far less of a factor than it is, in today's NBA. And a lot of people don't like that about today's NBA. To me, it doesn't really matter, because when I watch somebody like Stephen Curry, cross over half court, and he's ready to get a bucket as soon as he crosses over half court. I mean, I think today's NBA is just fine. And you know what's funny? I don't know if you ever watched the Big Three at all, but they have the 4-point shot in the Big Three. What I would like to see someday is, if for the NBA to, they've changed the rule this year as far as, those, half-court heaves, that it won't count against a player's individual stat. It'll only count as a team stat. Mm-hmm. I would like to see any shot from beyond half-court become a 4-point shot. I think that would be super cool,
Yeah, I think it's deserved, because I just think, a regular 3-pointer and a Steph Curry 3-pointer are not the same 3-pointer. I think they I think they definitely deserve a little more recognition than that. All right, well, last thing we did want to talk about is the Celtics did unveil a new uniform. I know that you definitely want to talk a little bit about that. What is the significance of that uniform?
Well, I mean, a lot of people really like it. It's certainly an attractive uniform. But the color green is nowhere in that uniform. And to me, if you're, a Celtic, there's always been green in the uniform. But it's funny. To me, all right, go ahead. It is what it is. To me, I'm far more interested in who's in the uniform as opposed to what's on the uniform.
For sure. Do you believe in superstitions about uniforms?
That's a really good question. I didn't think of that, but maybe.
When I was an athlete, I had to wear my socks the exact same way every single game. So it would freak me out to walk out of there in no green. But yeah, I thought it was cute. So I'll take it. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I know we're wrapping things up. Can I do a shameless plug for something before we say goodbye?
Of course.
We're on our 48 Minutes podcast, which we hope some of your listeners and viewers will check out. We have a really good crew of Russ Geiger, who's a former video coordinator for 3 NBA teams. He's like best friends with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So, we have some good insight on him. We have another guy, Michael Freer, who's like a statistical guru, writes, reports for a lot of the NBA announced teams. But we're currently doing a project called Two-A-Days, where we're doing 3 short shows each week, where we take 2 teams and preview them. And we're in the process. We're about halfway through them right now. Between now and October 10th, we're going to be releasing 3 short shows a week. So if you want to learn a little bit in some nice digestible little podcasts, 15, 20 minutes long, we would invite you to check out our Two-A-Days, because the one thing I can promise you is if you listen to these Two-A-Days, you will become a water cooler legend at the office, because you will know a little something good about every NBA team. So I would like to invite, your listeners and your viewers to check that out. And,
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, and again, you can hit me up on social media if you want with any questions you ever want us to talk about on our podcast. We love interacting with our listeners and our viewers. So, you can always find me at Pure Hoops Bruce. I'm there on Instagram. I'm there on Twitter X, as are my partners. So thank you for allowing me to get that in, Courtney.
Of course. All right, you heard it there, y'all. Pure Hoops Bruce. So follow that 48 Minutes podcast on BLEAV Network. It is wonderful. You have a literal superstar as your co-host, so it's going to be super, super good. All right, Bruce. Well, thank you so much for being here today. This was an amazing conversation. I'm so looking forward. And if you ever want to come back and chat it up this season, we will be here once a week. So come back, hang out, and I would love to talk to you again. But other than that, that's all for now, Celtics fans. We'll see you on the next episode of BLEAV in Celtics. Bruce, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Courtney.